and welcome back to Suricata Crafts. I'm Rebecca. Today I'm going to tell you all about my hook collection and which ones I prefer, my opinion and pros and cons about each one, and my overall impression about whether they're worth the money or whether you should stick with what you can get at your local craft store. Here we go. I'm going to start today by talking about the resin hooks. These mostly come in larger sizes because the tips tend to be a little more fragile and prone to breaking. This first hook is a 4mm Ohmi hook in a blue swirl resin. I found it very long in the neck area so that I was choking up on the neck and not holding the handle properly. The head is very small and the hook is incredibly small. I found it hard to catch my stitches pulling back after the yarn over, and it looks so fragile. I would not drop this one. It's gonna break. This is a 5mm Ohmi hook in pink resin. It's very smooth. It's very comfortable to hold. The ridges that are molded into it fit your hand quite nicely. I didn't have any issues with this hook, but also nothing extraordinary stood out to me. It's comfy, it's smooth, it's a good hook. This is a 6.5mm Ohmi hook in red swirl resin, and it is beautiful. It has a nice point and is smooth to crochet with, although when I first took it out of the package and started working with it, it was slightly sticky. But I cleaned it off with my t-shirt, and it was fine after that. I did notice that the hook on it is not quite even. I think in finishing, they finished one side a little bit more than the other, but it doesn't really interfere with working with it, and it is a nice smooth hook. This beautiful hook is a 6.5mm Ohmi hook, and it's in almost a galaxy swirl. It's got a nice good point, a nice hook for pulling back, and I appreciate that the size is engraved on it, not stamped, because where it's placed, not only is it slightly unseemly, but it's gonna rub off. It's exactly where your hand goes while you're working with it. This hook is a 10mm Ohmi hook in yellow resin. It fits really nicely in your hand. It also had a coating on it, but came off again on my t-shirt, and it fits your hand perfectly. It's really nice to work with. The last resin hook I'm going to show you is also a 10mm Ohmi hook in turquoise. This one is my favorite chunky hook. It is smooth, it's got a great point and a good hook. It's an inline hook, which I don't usually like working with, but this one just glides so smoothly. The only thing is, when working with Bernat blanket yarn, which is what I've been using it for, it kind of squeaks a little bit. But if you can ignore it, it's a great hook to work with. This next section is about hooks with the metal tips on them. Some of them have wooden handles, some of them have resin, but they're all very great to work with. I'll tell you all about them. This first hook is the smallest one that I got. It is an Ommi 2.5mm with wood and metal. It's got a birch handle and it's very smooth to work with. There was no coating on it or anything. It just worked really nicely. It worked amazingly with cotton. There were no issues with it, and it was very comfortable to hold in my hand. This beautiful hook is a 3mm Ohmi in black and gold. They call it ebony and gold, but I doubt it's ebony because when it came out of the package, the handle is a little bit sticky from varnish. I imagine it's probably regular wood, like birch, painted black. The only issue I had with this one was that it had a shallow throat behind the hook, and it was just a touch tricky to work with because how shallow it was. This 3.5mm hook is also an Ommi. It fit perfectly in my hand. It was super smooth to work with. There was no stickiness or residue. It was just great. I love the length of these hooks, and they're just a perfect hook, really. This hook is in the same series as the last one. This is a 4mm Ommi with silver metal and black resin, and it's beautiful. Same as the last one, it's a perfect fit. It's nice and smooth, no issues, and it fits. It's just so nice to hold in your hand. The round ball in the center of the design just fits nicely where your pinky goes and gives you something nice to grip onto. This last hook in the series is one I can give you lots of insight on. It's the hook I've been using for my temperature blanket. It's a size 4mm Ohmi hook in birchwood and gold metal. And it is smooth. It's nice and long for my long fingers. And it glides like a dream. The only thing that I've noticed with it is sometimes where the metal meets the wood, it kind of squeaks, but as I've been working with it, it seems to have found its sweet spot and has stopped squeaking most of the time. This last section is wooden hooks, and I'll start by saying I am not a fan of wooden hooks for most projects. I love the way they look, I love how each hook is individual, but I don't like the drag that they have on most yarns and wools. I'm going to be comparing and contrasting 3 brands. I have an Ohmi hook, I have a few Divot Shilips, and 1 Furls hook. I'll go through and let you know their best features and what I didn't like about it. This is a Divot Shilip hook in 3.5mm purple heart wood. Now, this has a dangerously thin head. I found the head too long and thin, and the back hook where you pull the yarn back through is very sharp. To be perfectly honest, I returned this one to Amazon because I knew it would break as soon as I used it. This 3.5mm birchwood is also a Divot Shilip hook, the same size as the last one, but it's a bit sturdier, but not a whole lot. When I'm using small hooks like this, I much prefer metal hooks. I find them sturdier. The wood feels weak, like it's going to bend and break on me. The only downside to this hook is the back hook splits your yarn because it is so sharp. If I use this hook for a project, I'll be filing that hook back just a touch. This is a 4mm Furls hook in teak. Furls is supposed to be the brand for wooden hooks, but I found this one a little short. Not too short, but just about too short. It has a very nice point. The only thing I didn't like about it is that the head of it is very long, and the back hook again is very sharp. Now, I imagine that it will wear with time, but I would unfortunately touch my Furls hook slightly with a file. This 4mm Ohmi hook is made with wood and resin, and it is beautiful. They've made it look as if they took a hook, snapped it in two, and filled the inside with a cloudy, opalescent resin. It's a bit draggy. The tip is a bit rough, and again the back point splits the yarn, so I'd have to touch it up with just a nail file and smooth it out a little bit. But it's beautiful. This is a 7mm Divot Shilip hook in rainbow wood, and the notes that I made about it are that it's pretty. Everything else there's a problem with. The wood underneath the hook is very rough and catches the fibers of the yarn you're working with. The stamp is not clear and it's going to wear off, and the head is extremely long, awkwardly long. But it's pretty. This 7mm Divot slip hook in birch is, well, it's okay. It has a very round head. There's not a very good point to it for poking through your stitches. And the stamp of it is directly under your thumb, and it is a stamp, not an engraving. It's going to wear off. You're going to have to use a hook sizer to find out what size it is every time you use it. The last hook is a Divot slip 8mm in purple heart wood. The first thing that I had to deal with was a giant splinter. It caught my finger, and then it caught the yarn, and I had to peel it off, and now there's a scar in the hook already. Again, this one has a very round head, and the stamp is awkwardly placed, but it will look beautiful in my collection. So, in conclusion, I really enjoyed working with the resin hooks, which is something I haven't worked with before. My favorite go-to is always going to be a metal hook, but I love these ones with the wooden and the resin handles on them. And wooden hooks for me serve a purpose. They work really well with certain materials. Unfortunately, I don't use those materials very often, but I'll keep them on my shelf, admire the beautiful natural woods, and keep them for such an occasion as I need a wooden hook. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something, and maybe now you have an opinion on whether it's worth it for you to try some of these hooks out. I've left links in the description below where you can find them, and it's not an affiliate link. I don't get any money from it. It's just to share what I've learned and to help you out. I love to hear from you, so leave a message in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I hope you stick around, and we'll see you soon. Happy crafting!